Hello and welcome to episode 113 of Marketing Corner.
Whoop whoop.
Woohoo!
Hey! That was solid. That's actually way better.
That was actually the most enthusiastic woohoo
we've had
any
ever.
guest. So well done. So we're welcoming back our most enthusiastic guest, Kamma Luise Rodian. Did I say that in a Danish way?
Yeah, I think I would just say Rodian.
Rodian. Let me say it the
It's
American
actually
way.
a French name.
Is it?
Yeah.
All right.
Welcome to Cultural Corner with, with our
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah, culture. Kamma Luise, you're back. I'm going to call you Kamma Luise. So in the last episode, we talked about the current state of product marketing. What is it? Where does it sit? What do they do? But now let's talk about the future of product marketing. So, and we're talking to you because this is an area that you know really, really well. And if you didn't listen to our last episode, what are you doing?
What are you doing
What
here?
are you doing?
Go back.
Go
Listen
back.
to that first. Come back
Do
after.
you know how this works?
Yeah. This is not. We don't play around.
What's
like
wrong
this.
with you?
It's weird.
Ugh.
Go do first before seconds. Like 'cause you don't.
Anyway,
you don't need dessert before.
This is when we start insulting the
like,
listeners.
yeah.
All 6 of
I would
them.
actually vote for starting with this shirt. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Should we start with this one?
Okay.
Never fill your stomach
All right.
before you have the good part.
I think we're coming from a place where we've kind of defined product marketing, but there's so much stuff going on these days. Marketing is evolving a lot, and so is product marketing.
Yes.
So we kind of wanted to explore a little bit and talk to an expert here and like someone who's in the weeds of product marketing. What's the future looking like?
And of course, we need to talk the word
AI.
Oh, we need to talk about it, but it's
Yes.
not only AI.
No.
AI is not the only thing. It's a big thing, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, what is the product marketer of 2026 looking like to you?
So my hopes for 2026 is that it's better understood what it is that we do, what it is that we can help people achieve, and how it is that we work together. And actually, after recording our first episode, I think I came to think about some very interesting elements, which is what makes people win and also what makes companies win is that we work together, and it's the synergies. And you said that maybe we are a type of enabler, or like the product marketeers are the types of enablers, but in essence we're also like the host of the party. I think I would call us, because we understand who it is that you need to invite, what you need to do in order to throw a really, really, really wonderful party, and we don't forget hiring the catering or whatever. No, we really understand what's the entire scope of.
What's the theme?
Yeah.
Costume theme, obviously.
Yes, obviously, and what to drink.
And what to drink, very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, but I think there'll also be a very huge element of one thing is understanding we're building the foundation, we're solving the problems, as you and I were speaking about, but it's also about what are the tools that we need in order to win, and that leads to the AI element and the tooling.
Yes, and the tool belt.
I'm curious, like, because let's start from how much of your like product marketing life is spent on research, like on sitting like competitors, customer interviews. That for me that's research. How much of that time? How if you had to put a percentage on it, how much would you say just off the hip?
Ideally, I would say 50 to 60.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Ideally.
Like
But reality, we're more down to 20 to 30, I think.
20 to 30,
But
right?
again, it depends on what type of product marketer you are and in what type of organization you're working in.
Yeah.
Because if the problem is launching features, for example, or functionalities, then you have your eyes on doing that in a really good way. I think especially, I guess that also counts for every marketer. We've sat in this situation where we just received maybe an email or Slack message being, by the way, we're releasing this new feature in 5 minutes. Could you make a press release?
Yeah.
Make sure everyone knows about it. Better make a splash. Great.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they come back the day after and they're like, why is the adoption so horrible?
True.
So there's a bit of this enablement element, trying to teach people how do we do this the right way, and how do we cut different corners.
And I think even though technically speaking, product does not sit in the GTM function, I think that should change. And that's something I hope to see is how do we pull the product roadmap into your go-to-market strategy? And I think having that understanding, right? Having this understanding that things take time. If you want it to work well, we need to be aligned. We need to know from what's in the... And I did a talk at Sassius last year where I talked about like a sports team, and you look at your kind of organization as a sports team, and you have your forwards as sales, right? your kind of midfield who do a little forwards, but also defense is marketing. Defense is CS, but your product is the goalkeeper, right? And the product is the thing that's, if you have shitty offense, you have bad marketing, you have bad sales, but you have a really good product.
Yeah.
It should still be able to overcome the fact that you don't have a really good GTM, right? If you have a good function. And it's kind of pulling all of these things together. I don't know where I'm going with this. Maybe I should have thought a little bit, but it resonated a little bit what you're saying of like, you want people in the future to know what you do, and I want people in the future to see how the go-to market and product fit together to understand and kind of support each other to enable and move things up.
I think one thing that's interesting for me is also like, so with the birth of AI and stuff, and I think one of the things I've at least found like product marketeers and stuff, and let me use, I'm not a product marketeer per se, but I get it, but one of the things I've used a lot is that, let's say you have a sales organization and they're all recording all their talks, all their pitches and stuff. Now suddenly you can ask an AI, hey, what do people think about the new feature?
Yeah.
Like, what's the sentiment on this new feature?
Exactly.
That's literally a question
cool.
you can ask to AI, right? And that exercise alone, figuring that out before AI, before this kind of stuff,
Super
well,
manual.
it was like a month, I don't know, like a month worth of watching sales calls. And yes, technically maybe you'll go a little bit deeper than by that, but not that much, right? Like,
And I think that's when we talk like research, is the research side of things can be completely made more efficient with AI. And that's one area that hopefully, we were talking off air, like you could do 10 interviews of customers or use AI and scrape 10,000 and get things faster. It won't be super qualitative, but you can figure out what's working and what's not.
it'll be quite good, right, though?
But that's actually really interesting, because when you ask me how much time should you spend on
Exactly.
research, because when I'm looking at how much time I'm saving by just using, for example, ChatGPT, then that allows me to free up so much time, and even though it's in reality, I only get 20 to 30% to do research, then those 20 to 30% become way more efficient, and thereby they actually fulfill. Yeah, that's a good one.
So it's adapting to your actual schedule rather than letting you do the stuff that you think. Maybe we can get a little tactical for our listeners, because the first research we talk about was customers, right?
Yes.
So you could do Gong, or you can use your CRM note. Well, that's
The note takers or whatever.
But note takers, you can scrape G2. You can use AI for that. For the buyer sentiment, you can look at your CRM, and as long as your sales team are taking really good notes, there's ways you can use AI for that. Are there any other tools? You mentioned ChatGPT, but ways that listeners could use AI to make that research, that 30%, that 20% of time that they're given, how do they really 10x the output?
There are a lot of really cool solutions built in Notion, actually, where you can make messaging and positioning extremely fast. I think it's built just on ChatGPT, but it works tremendously. One thing that I also think about, like we speak a lot about AI as something that can, for example, scrape different elements, scrape G2, whatever. But I read an article the other day saying, what if you instead work with this idea about assistance that you can, for example, build in ChatGPT, and then you build your buyer persona as an assistant, and then you validate and you bounce different ideas.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think it's
cool.
such a wonderful
I'm
idea.
stealing that.
Yeah.
I'm stealing that. 100%.
Totally
Stealing
the same.
that. Yeah.
Because it helps you, like, first off, it makes it way easier to validate different ideas and test different ideas. Obviously, it depends a little bit on how it is that you've built it. But I think shifting the focus on AI to being something where you also interact in kind of like a human way is really fascinating.
As long as you're in the driver's seat, right? You're feeding it. You're saying, I'm thinking about this, and you're taking it, and you're.
And I think if I can jump in, I think one of the things speaking of the future of a product marketeer, I think we might get to the core of what a product marketeer, in my opinion, is really good at. And I think that's also why I always been a fan of you, Kamma, because like one of the things you're really good at is asking the right questions. And in the future, a product marketeer can spend because today when you ask the right questions, you also have to do follow-up, do the research.
Now it's called a prompt.
Now it's called a prompt. But you become I'm not saying you become a prompt engineer per se, but you become the one who is, because if everybody has access to technically we all have access to the same data, but you're the one who says, okay, we gotta ask about this thing. This is the thing we actually need to know about, and being capable of asking that question. I think that's when you become a superhero kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
That's at least my take.
Thank you for for your nice words. But I think I totally agree with you. And I think that it's you're nailing something extremely interesting in this element of prompting, and then garbage in, garbage out. We all know that element. But what I'm struggling a little bit with, and I don't know if you guys have found a solution or something that solves it for you when you're using AI, is as part of a conversation, like an interview, for example, which would also be prompting your buyer persona in an AI buyer persona. It's also a lot about understanding and listening between the lines.
Yes.
And daring to also ask the stupid questions. And when you have that, when you manage to establish the connection with a customer, for example, or one of your colleagues or something, then you can dig a little bit deeper into it.
You can follow up on things and
And I don't know if you have any good experiences with doing something similar with AI or utilizing it.
I mean, we talked a little bit about root cause analysis.
Yeah.
But why? And one of the things that we've done, I've done previously is, we'll make a statement and we'll say, but who cares? Who cares? And we'll ask that usually 6 times, and then eventually ChatGPT or whatever will get to this is why this matters. But I think if it were an interview with you where it's that's interesting, let's talk about that. I don't know how an AI would be able to do that. But then I guess there's quantitative data, which is going to help you make database decisions. And then there's qualitative, where you can find anecdotally. And it's a balance of the two. You want to look at a graph and say 60% of people said this.
Yeah.
But you also want to be able to have that qualitative flair of anecdotes, because I think that's more impactful for people to hear what people are saying. And that I don't think AI will replace. It's going to be good product marketers.
I think so too. I think that's also a really key element in this, the balance of AI, because AI can do a lot of amazing things, and it enables us to do so much. I've gone from writing press releases that took sometimes 6 hours, nailing them, and I don't know if that's slow or whatever it is, but it felt like it was forever. It was really annoying. But being able to just write them in 30 minutes, and nail it. Even so, one of our I have a favorite PR girl called Vanessa. She was impressed.
Yes.
And that's a huge.
And I think some PR people are like, oh shit.
Yeah. No, but it's real.
There's also a lot of shit out there. Sorry, my friends, but
I actually also think it's one of the things we talked a lot about AI and this whole wave is that the threat of marketing roles and stuff. And I think a lot of the creative people, a lot of the copywriting, press people probably as well, are worried about AI, right? It's having a pretty direct impact. I'm not worried about product marketing in the same fashion. I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel product marketeers should be super threatened. But here's my but. I think my but is that it will cover the surface level product marketing. So the part today where when you need help with segmentation, you need a little bit of help with value proposition, stuff like that. AI can help you get there faster, and you might be I don't need a product marketer. I can do this with AI. I think that could be the case. I don't think it's going to be as bad as I might, but I don't see it filling the role in the same sense where some people are they are completely I'm not hiring a designer because I got AI, right? I don't think that's happening.
So stupid,
Which is also stupid. That's a completely different story. But
I think the role of the product marketer will change, right? Because before it was do a customer interview, and now it's I wish 60% of my time I could look at competitor websites, and then we saw the advancement of tools where they'll tell you if a website has changed. Yeah. Now you can just throw stuff into ChatGPT and it'll tell you boom, 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 boom. Here's all the differences. Here's what you're missing. So I think I agree with you, and I think the role is going to have to shift to someone who can connect all those dots.
Yes.
So someone who I think the product marketing person probably has to be the most AI literate of the marketing function, because
Probably, right?
they're
Yeah.
going to have to pull on competitor data, market analysis, customer interviews,
Stitch it
product
together.
analysis, and they're going to be the ones stitching it all together and making it make sense. I think that for me is the new product marketer. Like content people to an extent,
Yeah.
performance marketing to an extent, but I think this person is going to be using Crayon for competitors, and they're going to be
Yeah.
using ChatGPT for this, and they're using Notebook LM. I think that that's the new product marketer, is someone who's really well versed in these different tools and how to connect all the dots.
But that's actually interesting because I think we've done it all the time, and maybe that's also why we are adapting AI faster.
Yes.
Because we don't have time to do
You
all
don't
the
have to,
things. No.
to do all the things.
Yes, exactly. And we do know that there are like robots and people out there that might be even better at understanding whatever, or interviewing and so forth. So I think we're more likely to adapt and onboard it. To what you guys were saying, I think there's a very interesting element in regards to feeling threatened by AI. And yes, of course, all of us are a little bit like, wow, okay, what is it really that you can do? And is it in reality AI, or is it just machine learning that we are defining as AI? But that's another story.
Different episode.
Yes. I think there's a really interesting element of, I think we will start to see marketeers and prime marketeers, but maybe even in all departments, that are curating or acts more as curators, because what you get out of ChatGPT, for example, or Crayon or whatever, you really need to vet that it's okay,
Yes.
that it's the quality. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially after ChatGPT was rolled out and everyone's almost using it
every minute of the day,
I was about
literally.
to say second,
Yeah, every second.
We see so much content that is just pushed out.
Yes.
And it's extremely easy to see, okay, this AI, like I'm thrilled to share, or here's the M dash, like, the small little
M-dash,
things, or even the poor narrative that sometimes apply to a content piece. I think the key is, how good are you at prompting? How good are you at curating? And then making sure that what you do is really valid, but also of high quality.
Yeah.
And that is also like, that comes back to what is the role of product marketing, and what will the role also be, is like really make sure that we deliver to an extent that all of us can be proud of, and we do it together. It almost
I love
sounded
that.
like
No.
Yes.
That's a
And
really
then we're
good.
all going to
that's
sing
a-
Kumbaya and hold hands.
Yeah,
and
there's,
no, but-
there's a
but
there's
you're
a
absolutely
level
right.
of quality control, right?
Yes, and
Right?
I think that's how you stand out now in the
Yeah.
sea of AI-driven drivel. It's the people who, and I think with AI, generative engine optimization, right, it's looking at what's authoritative, what uses statistics, what actually sounds not like AI, which is kind of a very interesting kind of dynamic of AI will prioritize stuff that doesn't sound like AI to make more AI.
Yeah.
It's so interesting. I tried to write an article in ChatGPT, put it into make this not sound like an AI, and then it came out with something where I was like, I would never write in such a bad way.
No.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
I'll
blanking.
interrupt with something
good.
that we've been doing.
Yeah.
That maybe people at home, I talked a little bit about this, but one of the things we've been using is we have Notebook LM, which I think is really great. If you haven't tried it, try it out. And that's where you can put up to, I believe, 300 files, PDFs, PowerPoints, whatever, and it'll summarize it for you. So that's super helpful when you're doing an analysis, a due diligence. Throw everything in there and then just tell me the highlights. But one of the things I started doing for our portfolio companies is I'll be using ChatGPT, Notebook LM, and dump in their ads, dump in their website, anything I can find of their marketing material, and say, based on this, what is their ICP? And then I send that to the company and say, this is what our AI thinks is your ICP. How far off is it? And I would say 90% of the time, they're like, no, that's not who we're after. So it's a way of, it's a little bit of product marketing of like, sometimes you get so stuck into your, we talked previously of the wood through the trees. This is how we always say this. But sometimes it's nice to use an AI tool to kind of a third pair of eyes who are like, based on your ads, based on your copy, this is who you're appealing to. And kind of making sure that you stay on top of that. I think that's one takeaway.
And now I remembered.
Yeah.
I remember it now. Because like my point was just to say this, it feels like a full circle moment. Because it feels like we're getting back to the, probably, in my opinion, is it the most important part of our product? I don't know. Positioning.
Yeah.
Like I feel like if everything's so crowded, if the whole space is so crowded, the most valuable thing you can do is nail your positioning.
Yeah.
And that's where the product marketer is the
marketing.
strongest, right?
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yes.
Wouldn't you say so, or?
I don't know if I would say that we are the strongest because
Okay,
it depends
yeah.
on what type of person you are.
You're good at it.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
sorry.
But it does sit usually with the product marketer, right?
It does. And I think it is like, I've been speaking with a lot of people around positioning, and what have been extremely interesting is that no one really knows where it should sit. So maybe that is actually also what is product marketing is doing. We're doing positioning, messaging, ICP, all these different things. But what is also very, very interesting is that a lot of people are like, but I feel that I should do it. And I'm not speaking like saying people are product marketeers, but it could be like a traditional marketing department or a traditional product department. And they'll be like, but we should be good at this. And people are really, really good at it. And
it's hard.
Exactly.
Very hard
It's
thing to do.
extremely hard. And it constantly changes also.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
not, but
No. It's hard.
Expands. The higher your targets get, the more
yeah.
your positioning gets a little flexible, I find.
Yeah, and then there's this interesting element of, I think it's a book called Crossing the Chasm, where you have this bell curve, and then when you go from one target audience to another, then you have this cliff, and this is where you really see a lot of companies disappear because they never really manage to jump the cliff and understand how you should position to the next target audience.
That actually brings me to another question. And I know this is maybe not the future of product marketing, but it's a question I really wanted to ask as well. Like, I remember you use a lot of frameworks. You have really cool ideas and stuff. What are like your go-to frameworks or go-to models that you keep returning or keep using, like find using all the time?
It's like the framework I constantly use is called strategic messaging map.
Yes.
And the reason why I use strategic messaging map is that ties positioning, target audience, and product and value, and then a little bit of the market. Not so much about like what market we operate within, but the ties, like market also ties with positioning. But it's a wonderful, sometimes I also call it the bingo plate, because when you want to do something and you have, for example, the marketing teams coming up with good ideas, then you just go to the strategic messaging map and say, okay, that taps into this value statement or this value bullet point for this buyer persona. And these are the product features that we can use or that we have that ties into it. And these are the proof points. And then you have quotes from or testimonials from customers and so. And it's an amazing tool to enable the entire organization, but also highlight what is it that we're missing. Yeah. So especially when it comes to product, what feature or functionality are we actually missing? And what is it that our competitors they have? Yes. And how do we make that
and
better?
It gets us out of that trap that we always fall into of one size fits all. All customers like this. Well, no, actually they don't. And that's not relevant for everyone. So to have, what I really like about frameworks is it's almost like a scientific formula. You get out of the gut, the HIPPO, which we talk about, the highest paid person's opinion. You have something you point to and you go, this is what this is. And then at least it gives you the fighting chance to get out of the gut and to use data. So maybe that's something we can share with our listeners.
Yeah, it could be cool. And it actually reminds me, maybe that's also why AI buyer personas or AI personas could be really cool, because then you could, instead of having the HIPPO person, I've actually never heard that term, but
highest paid person's opinion. I think I mention it almost every episode.
You mentioned it a lot lately.
It's such a problem.
Yeah, or the one yelling the loudest. That's also
and it's mostly a problem if you're not aware of it, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the classic thing. It's like I usually, because like actually when you talk to your team at Onamondo and we're here at Sparkforce, we are technically the hippos.
Yeah, we're the hippos.
But we know we are the hippos.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference, because a lot of the hippos that are a problem is because they are not aware they are the hippos.
Yeah.
That's
like
I'm being
you
a little
said,
bit.
I'm so funny all of a sudden.
Everyone's
laughing at my jokes.
I keep telling this joke to everyone. I'm just like I keep telling my wife. Suddenly, like after I made Sparkforce, I'm way funnier. Like people laugh at all my jokes, and I'm like my wife, and then exactly. And my wife is just like humbling me. No, you're not, honey.
You're not that funny.
You're worse.
So
but that's the kind of same principle.
That's the HIPPO.
Yeah.
And what I thought was that it could be fun to build an assistant that was like the HIPPO kind of, and then bounce stuff, because then it would not be subjective. And
there's a lot of personas you can build. That's
could you
cool
bounce
idea.
like I haven't even done this, but this is a great idea. Could you I know it's a great idea, but could you build multiple personas that talk to each other? Couldn't you could technically do that, right? Like, so you could have like, hey, Karsten, you are boom boom CMO, or here's Katrine, and you're the CEO, and blah. Hey, what do you think about this? Like, and then they debate it or something.
Yeah, I did that earlier this week.
Okay.
Trying to get, because I've had different assistants that could do different things, and then I brought them in together by I actually just tagged them, similar to what you do in Slack. So I tagged whiz, whatever.
Is this through
called.
ChatGPT or?
Yeah, that was ChatGPT.
Okay. Sorry, carry on. I just wanted to
but
make
it
sure
was just really interesting because it was kind of like, okay, bring me the popcorns, and then they just started talking. So the different personas, they just spoke to each other, and they were like, no,
But
this
that's
is
like
That's insane.
that's like a focus group kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Almost
Yep.
like that, right?
Yeah.
And you had to pay a lot of dough for that back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it took a lot of time and it took a lot of effort, and now you just build a custom GPT. It's not
But
going to be as
again,
good.
it comes
It's not
back
going to be
to
good.
how good we're.
Yeah, that's true.
These.
And that's the thing we have to remember is AI is pulling from what already exists.
Yeah.
It's not creating anything new, and so that's a big caveat. Absolutely.
Which ties back to why product marketing is so important.
Yes.
Build the foundation, get the foundation right, understand what's the messaging, what's the value proposition, positioning, buyer personas, and so forth, and then you can accelerate.
And maybe we should have talked about this in the last episode, but this is something I think a lot of product marketers come up against, and I'm going to lean back into the HIPPO a little bit. But I've seen so many times, and I've experienced it myself, where we're like, our data shows this, and you have a visionary founder who's like, I don't care. I want to do that. I want to be enterprise, but the data shows we're not enterprise. I don't care. I want to be, the next Coca-Cola, but we're not. I don't care. Like, how do you come up against that? How do you make yourself heard in those moments where you have the data and a visionary founder?
Building the trust,
Yeah.
first off. So I rarely go into meetings with just, I feel that's something.
Never say that.
Obviously. Sometimes I do, but don't we all?
Feelings are great.
Yeah, feelings are really
Tell me
great,
more
but
about
I
your
try
feelings.
to always back it, and I
Yeah.
try to always be. But competitors are doing. The other day, I was showing to a company a way of visually looking at where are your shortcomings from a positioning point of view, and it's kind of like the star where you map based on 0 to 10 the company that you have in different themes, and then pair it with competitors. And it's extremely interesting because it's visual and it's fast to understand. Okay, so we have a really, really bad brand, for example. We need to do something there. Obviously, this type of framework is a little bit subjective, or it is subjective, but you also pull from a little bit of data. So that can end up being a little bit like, I feel this. But when I'm up against these types of people, and I've had that, I think maybe it was in the previous episode I told you about this repackaging and repricing or pricing project. There were some people that were very much against the direction that we were suggesting. And it's an element of really sitting down, listen to understand, try to ask the right questions, but also read between the lines and understand, hey, okay, so your childhood dream is to have a Coca-Cola kind of company because you loved Coca-Cola. Is that really then what we should build? Or is it something about understanding that if we just do something like this, then we win together? So really go deep, ask the stupid questions, and just be, hey, I just thought.
Yeah.
You're the expert.
Yeah,
Come on, give me
let's-
something.
Let's work together through this. One of the things I would say is, I've worked in companies that all want to be enterprise. And it's like, and I want to look like Angelina Jolie from Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I could spend all my life and all my money trying to look like her, or I can just work with what I got and what's working. And, so yeah, we could be enterprise if you want to let everything else go. But it's, maybe the same kind of vibe of like,
I'll play the devil's
Do it.
advocate for 1 second, and just for fun, right? So when I find when do you balance that, right? So let's say you have a founder who for some reason built a company, whether they knew what they were doing or not, right? They have built a company and they're somewhat successful, and then all your data points is saying this direction. How much should you always? Because I'm also at this point where I'm like, I don't feel like you always should trust the data.
Nope.
100%, right? Like data can also be wrong, right? I've seen a lot of data where I'm like, yeah, I know that the data is telling me to go left, but my gut feeling is screaming to go right.
Then
like-
you go middle. No.
yeah, you go in the middle.
But how do you I'm curious, what do you feel about that? Because if you ask Casper 10 years ago, I was like, fucking always data, always go left 100% of the time. Then if you asked him 5 years ago, I'd be like 80-20, 80% data, 20%. These days I'm more like 50-50. Because I trust the data, but I feel like my gut feeling sometimes, if my gut feeling is screaming this is wrong, then I gotta figure out why.
Yeah.
Right? Why is the data is saying all this is great, but there's something And that's what I'm like, because sometimes the founders
That's
do.
what I would ask ChatGPT. Like, what should I do?
And on that note,
My God is screaming.
Yeah.
I think that's sorry, go ahead. You're the guest.
I think it's.
I'm always talking. Go ahead.
Thank you. But I like speaking with you. I think you're hinting at something extremely interesting because data is in essence showing what happened in the past.
Yes.
And the gut feeling, or maybe the visionary founder, maybe he shows more to like what's
The future, right?
Future and so.
Yeah.
And then I think there's a huge element of experience.
Yes.
Because we have all tried. I remember starting at a company, they were like, yeah, we'll just do PR announcements and everything works. And I was like, okay.
Cool. Yeah. Sure.
Cool.
And to be very honest, I was a little bit stubborn being, okay, you need to do more than just a PR a press release. And we started pushing it out because people were just so, we need to do it. And it turned out that it was actually really good. So I learned some things along the way. And now my gut feeling is also pointing towards, yes, press releases can actually do some things, but you need to put it together and or bundle it with something else.
I would only challenge that slightly because it could be experience or it could be ego. And when
now
it's
we speak
ego,
about founders.
yes,
Yeah,
and
sorry.
I think
Got
no,
you.
but I think if you have, if I were reporting to someone who has done this 1,000 times and the data says one and they're like, trust me on this, then I'll trust them. But if I'm reporting to a fresh graduate from CBS who has never done this before, right? And we know, we've all worked in those companies, and they're just like, but I want to be the next Coca-Cola. That I think that's a really hard discussion to have. And I've had situations where I have asked, I said, the data says this, I'm a data person. Because sometimes I'll trust my gut if it's based in experience, but if it's based in vanity, if it's based in ego, that's where I'm like, all right, let the data get me there. But I have actually had cases where I've had my CEO, I said, please put in writing, because I'm telling you, the data shows that we're going to see a drop in conversions if we do what you want us to do. Can you please put in writing that you are okay with a drop in conversions so that when we see that, I can say I told you so. And in their defense, they did. I've had it happen twice where I've said, the data says we should do this. Your gut says that. I just want to cover my ass. That's a very old-fashioned way to do it, but I've said...
No, I think it's a wonderful exercise. And it brings to my attention or my memory I've had some product managers that were like, hey, this is the most amazing feature. We need to splash it all over the internet, and you should spend so much time on pushing this out. And then when looking at the feature, I was like, what?
So you added an extra button, or okay, great.
That's true. And what I then introduced was the PR exercise, and a little bit like, could you put it in writing? And then you give the product manager the task of, go write a press release.
I've done this. Yeah.
And
that's
it's
great.
such a fun exercise, and it often makes them realize, and other people as well, it should just be, and that's back to a little bit of frameworks as well, where I work with P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 4. It's like how much effort and how much resources and what should we put behind this release.
We did that exercise, actually, speaking of this. It was a product that was being launched, and exactly what you said. It was going to revolutionize this thing, groundbreaking, blah, blah, blah. Jen, we need press, we need to be on TV. We were looking at billboards in Times Square. Like, it was... This is huge. This is going to change everything. And I was like, I got everyone in a room and I was like, write a press release. What does a press release say? And you could see them like, this only works for a tiny fraction of our devices. And it doesn't actually work in most regions. And it was like that exercise. And
it's the biggest thing ever.
Yeah. And that exercise was super effective it wasn't me saying no.
Oh,
I said,
humbling.
Yeah. And I think it's a safe way of kind of saying, are you sure? But we're straying a little bit away from the future, but I think these are all really, really important topics.
I also think we have to round off, unfortunately. Unless people want to hear us ramble more, which they always do.
They probably do.
They probably do.
You want to get a beer?
Yeah, we'll get a beer.
Just crack a beer.
Can I maybe do just a small roundup?
Yes,
of what
100%.
Because I want to tie it back to the element and the profession of product marketing, which is the building of the foundation, making sure that everyone understands where we're going and why we're going in this direction, and then making sure that people have the tools to also go in that direction. And what you're saying there is a little bit of this educational element, which very much also ties with the role of product marketing. Because if you can't educate people, and not in a you need to learn math kind of way, but in a way of understanding what is what scope, what world are we operating within? And that goes for all teams.
Yeah.
Then I think you actually fail as a product marketer.
And I think that's a great line. And I would say your VP of marketing, your head of marketing, whoever the product marketing person is reporting to, it's your job to make sure that they can do this. Like, it's the head of marketing's job to market internally and create space for that product marketer to be trusted, to be listened to, and to kind of, so for the marketing leaders out there listening, make sure your product marketer can thrive. Yeah.
Sold. And
Boom.
On that note, thanks for listening, folks.
Thank you. And thank you for joining
Thanks
us
for joining
and sitting
us.
here in this dark, hot room for so long.
Yeah,
with us.
nice.
Thank you for having
lovely.
me. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And of course, any shout outs you want to do? Do you do shout outs?
Do we do shout outs?
I do a lot of shout outs.
Do a shout out?
Yeah.
Do a shout out. Feel free.
I would really love to do a shout out to Bianca, who
Yes.
both of us have worked with and for. Or she's worked for us. Bianca started as a student
Yes.
at United FinTech
Yeah.
and is now evolved into what's her title?
She's a delivery manager.
She's a delivery
Yeah,
manager.
Sparkforce.
And one of the things, and it might be that I'm nerdy about product marketing, is that I think all marketers should understand product marketing. They should understand what the customers, the market, the product, and so forth. And then they should accelerate within their area of expertise. And Bianca, she took on all these elements, all these frameworks, all these books, all the different things that I
Just toss that her.
Yeah.
yeah. And it was so amazing to see how she accelerated and how she is accelerating and how this basic understanding or like the foundation of customers, product and market is really helping her in everything that she does. And I think that makes her an even better marketeer and a better delivery manager. And that's something that
She's
every
a fucking
marketer,
sponge.
yeah, she
Yeah,
is. And
I
every
love it.
marketer should do that. And I think you should even teach it at CBS or the different
Great
schools.
shout out.
Great shout out.
Shout out to Bianca.
Yeah, Bianca. I don't know you, but
She's great.
you sound awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Thanks for
On that
tuning in,
note.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And any questions, find Kamma on LinkedIn.
On the LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Happy to bounce positioning ideas, business goals, and all these.
Grab
Love
her.
it.
Grab her while you
Love
can.
it. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.